Welcome in from Nissan Stadium, site of another bad performance by your Tennessee Titans. Paul Kuharksy with the Paul Kuharksy podcast, post-game edition. Titans lose 30-14 to the Green Bay Packers, and unbelievably, Malik Willis. Matt LaFleur draws up a great game plan, and the Titans get picked apart, quite frankly. I hang this one on the defense in a lot of ways. Pick six by Will Levis, not good. And the offense obviously needs to do more. The pass protection fell apart in the second half in a big way. 7 of the 8 sacks after halftime. But Malik Willis just did too much for a guy that's not that good. Throwing for over 200 yards on 13 completions with the guys breaking a lot of tackles on a lot of short stuff. He made a couple nice throws downfield, and then he runs for a game-high 73 yards on 6 carries and a touchdown. Throws for a touchdown, runs for a touchdown, plays mistake-free. Who doesn't play mistake-free? Will Levis. He wasn't as bad as he's been. Pick 6, though, to Jaire Alexander. A very, very good corner who jumps DeAndre Hopkins. Brian Callahan was forgiving on that. Well, it's not the massive, idiotic, asinine kind of mistake that he's been making, but it's the kind of pick that you can't throw. And then he gets steamrolled on a sack given up by Petit Frere. Fumbles that one. I mean, there's not much the guy can do there. You could ask him to hold on to the ball, but he can't expect to just be absolutely stormed like that. Throws another pick in, hurry up. We need 2 touchdowns in 4 minutes time. Just an awful performance overall. I did Sabine saying Titans tend to let backup quarterbacks look great against them. I wonder, depending on what becomes of Malik Willis, and he certainly didn't have the failed pedigree, but, I was there when Ryan Leaf beat this team. I was there when Johnny Manziel beat this team. I wonder if Malik Willis is going to have the kind of career where this loss ranks with them. I won't be surprised if it does rank with them. Kyle was pissed, he says, that they fired Vrabel, and every week he feels justified for their reaction. Look, it's looking more and more, and it's still early. Brian Callahan can turn into a good coach. But the idea that they're going to jump into this season and be good early with Callahan, a first-time coordinator, with first-time play caller, with Denard Wilson, a first-time play caller, whose guys did not do much for him today at all. And with a mix of older and younger in this offensive line, it's clearly Bill Callahan, not the miracle worker a lot of us thought he would be. Or hoped that he might be. Nothing's making Nicholas Petit Frere very good right now. Jalen Duncan's not going to be a much better solution. And 8 sacks, everybody contributing. Where was the $90 million Calvin Ridley? Aaron asks. It's a reasonable question. They went bigger, which made sense to try to help to protect the edges, which worked in the first half, a lot of jumbo. But that meant a minimal role for Ridley. 3 targets, 1 catch for 9 yards. Treylon Burks, 3 targets, 1 catch for 9 yards. 2 of the 4 most prominent receivers. It was nice to see DeAndre Hopkins, 7 targets, 6 catches, 73 yards, kind of emerge. I think that'll be good for them in the long run. But some serious problems that are going to take time. Logan, I mean, if you look at what Bill Callahan did in Cleveland last year, I got a big sneeze coming here. He did some pretty amazing things with some pretty average people, going 4 deep at a position. So you can't say you expect that everywhere he goes and every line he has, but he's a pretty damn good offensive line coach. So the more he can't do it with a guy like Petit Frere or a guy like Duncan, the more it's an indictment on them. I don't think it's as big an indictment on Brian Callahan by any means. I liked Ben Johnson the most out of the potential candidates to be hired after Vrabel, but I did not have, and most people did not have a big problem with Brian Callahan. Then once Brian Callahan was hired, some of the national folks said, no experience, blah, blah, blah. Who didn't have a lot of experience? Virtually every guy off of the Shanahan and McVay tree didn't have a lot of experience coming into their jobs. A lot of these young coaches, quick success. Of course, the Titans, buck trends in this way. Not fully out on Levis. Christopher says he's low-hanging fruit, but the entire team was trash today. I would agree with that. Let's take a phone call off the voicemail. JT Runke helping me out with some production stuff here. I think he's able to hit one. You can give me a random one, JT, and we'll react on the fly.
Hey, Paul, Caleb, Slashy Bold Cereal. 3 games in, I was seeing if anything right now with the team reminds you of the Wisenhunt era in terms of had an offensive guy come in with hopes of turning Locker into a feasible option at quarterback, and then it just went downhill real fast, could never protect the quarterback, and just really poor offensive line play, I feel like was the beginning and the end for Wisenhunt. So is there anything about Callahan that gives you hope that this is going to be a different outcome than the Wisenhunt era? Thanks.
Yeah, there is. I don't think there are many similarities. Wisenhunt, a stubborn, mean guy. Callahan, a flexible, nice guy. Callahan has a much better offensive line coach and his dad, who's a proven guy. Wisenhunt had a guy named Bob Bostad, who was a very robotic guy who did not connect with his players. He came from the University of Wisconsin, which had a good history of developing NFL offensive linemen, but he did not translate to the NFL at all. I think he went back to college after he failed here. The Jake Locker, Will Levis comparison, holds more heft the more that Will fails. Both high energy guys who gave off a vibe that they're going to come in and work hard and give the Titans that kind of work ethic. So I think that's a good thing. That was a good thing that was working in both of their favors. Locker was brought in largely because he was anti-Vince Young in terms of that. Levis, wasn't opposite Ryan Tannehill in any way. But I don't think this is a Ken Wisenhunt situation. I think this roster is more talented. The offensive line problems are similar right now, but I'd be more optimistic in terms of them being able to solve them, though maybe there's only so much they're going to be able to do this year. As the Titans offense, Logan asked, worse than the Iowa offense this year. I haven't seen how bad the Iowa offense is this year. Are they scoring 17, 17, and 14? I don't know. The points per game and the offensive output is really disappointing. At least they've shown some life in the second half the last 2 weeks. But it's a big problem. Everybody do me a favor. If you're on Twitter in particular, retweet, but Facebook, we can share. YouTube, we can share. Also, thumbs up, subscribe. And then as you're listening on Monday, like, rate, subscribe, all of that stuff that you can do. But we can pump up the audience right now with some retweets. So that would be terrific. Locker was, Chris says, Locker was inaccurate. Feels like Levis is just careless or dumb. Well, he's instinctively absent at times. And so I think it's fair not to classify the pick six he threw today with the pick six that he threw in Chicago or with the fumble that he had against the Jets. But I don't think you can like Callahan did, call it like just one of those interceptions that happened. I think it was a quick play, but he was looking at Hopkins from the very beginning. Hopkins was kind of opening up, it seemed to me, and Alexander read it very clearly. And I don't think that Levis gave Alexander enough credit for the potential there, or that he feared it enough. And he should have feared it more, gone off of that read to something else, taken a sack. There's another play where he wasn't safe enough. And I think he should have been a lot safer. What else do we have here? I go down to newer stuff. Noah, you're welcome for having it. If you're not a member of Kuharksy.com, you should join. Blake Bedingfield will have a scouting review of this game early tomorrow. I'll have all kinds of stuff this week. You won't find it anywhere else. Mike Herndon will have probably his thoughts on this game, or something more wide-ranging that pertains to something bigger. But you need to be, if you're as big a Titans fan as you say, and you want to get to the bottom of what's going on here, you need to be a member of Kuharksy.com. Sabine hoped we'd get at least one of these first three, but didn't we always know this team would be very good, especially early? Didn't we always know this team wouldn't be very good, I think she's saying, especially early, a lot of new pieces. I do think that, but I would have expected that they would have won at least one of these three, certainly. And I don't know if Skylar Thompson's returned, or if Tim Boyle, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, is still in for Miami. I mean, if they've got a chance at seeing Tim Boyle next week, I don't see how you could lose to Tim Boyle. But it's clear that the issue isn't just who's the quarterback on the other side, but their offense. Ernest Jones was great today. You know, he said that number one defensive ranking was bullshit, and that they're not a very good defense. They play good defense when it doesn't matter. When it matters most, they don't play good defense. And that's some good, candid, self-critical. I think that that Levis stinks. But, I mean, the Titans let him shine today. He's clearly better than I thought, performed better than I thought he could today. Credit to Matt LaFleur. Credit to Will Levis. Hats off to him. But he was not doing that here by any means. And if that indicts two coaching staffs and the like, so be it. I don't think you'll see things like that from him again. I think it had a lot to do with the Titans' failures. But we'll see if he has to play anymore. Willis, I mean, if I said Levis, my mistake. I crossed that up far more than I should. There's no quarterback trade coming. No quarterback trade coming. And some people were asking me before the game about Bryce Young. Like, Bryce Young is a solution. Titans fans are the worst. You not only want to trade your garbage and think that it has value. Hey, let's trade NPF right now, but let's trade for Bryce Young. Bryce Young's horrible. Bryce Young's every bit as bad as Will Levis right now, worse. And you want to trade for him? That's outrageous. Let's hear, I don't know if you like Matt LaFleur. I like him a great deal. There's a good video clip from him today, and I'll let you on some inside baseball here with the video from Matt LaFleur's post-game press conference, if JT has that ready.
Happy for our guys and proud of their effort.
You mentioned how we don't get it. I don't know.
Whatever, keep going, keep firing away. They told me this city was going to burn if we came in here and won the game, so I guess it is.
They told him the city was going to burn if they won. I think they, between us, is actually me, because I texted him early in the week and I said, if you come in here and win with Malik Willis, this city will burn. So I think he was giving me a backhanded shout out for my text. And I don't think the city is burning, and I hope it's not burning. But I think Titans fans' egos are burning. Titans fans' emotions are burning. I think it's pretty bad right now. What do we have here from Zach? How are we feeling about Tajay Spears right now, and is Jeffrey Simmons becoming a liability? I mean, Tajay Spears came into the game with a bad ankle. The Titans did absolutely nothing on the ground. Pollard 6 for 14, Levis 3 for 12, Spears 2 for 7. That's 11 for 33, a 3-yard average, a long of 8. Absolutely nothing on the ground. Titans needed to shut down the Packers on the ground to have a chance in this game, and to make Malik Willis a non-factor, to give Malik Willis no chance at success. They didn't do that because they gave up 37 for 188 and a 5.1-yard average. And the Titans, who needed to run in a similar fashion to help Will Levis have success, completely failed to help Will Levis have success. I don't have a feeling about Spears. I mean, they haven't gotten him going, but I've been very satisfied with Tony Pollard. He didn't do anything today, but nobody did anything today. Jeffrey Simmons isn't becoming a liability, but he's nowhere near as good as he and the Titans think he is. I don't think. I mean, I think he thinks he's Chris Jones. I don't think he's close to Chris Jones. Do any of you think he's close to Chris Jones? I mean, Callahan was surprised that play was called against him, which took a missed field goal off the board, gave the Packers a first down, and they went on to score a touchdown. But, you know, Jeff was emphasizing that the run success today was to the perimeter, to the perimeter, to the perimeter. Yeah, well, they're running away from you and Sweat. What can you do to affect the game when they're running away from you and Sweat? Malik dropped back 19 times. What, you know, he needs to be more, find a way to be more influential on games. And I hear too much between the lines from him about why he can't be influential on games, and too much outright from his coaches about why he can't be influential in games. I want him to be influential on games. I want him to be the guy that they paid. And has he been that guy since they've paid him? I don't feel like he has. Pat wants to know how this offense compares statistically to Downing and Kelly's first 3 games. I'll have to go look. I mean, I can't imagine it's much better. Robert says Snead looked really bad at times today. I mean, there were only 3 passes thrown, 3 or 4 passes. I sent out Malik's pass chart thrown over, 15 yards downfield. I don't know how bad Snead could have looked, really. George or Jorge says Simmons needs Vrabel and Coach T to be very good elite. Well, Simmons wasn't elite the last 2 years. So Coach T wasn't making him elite. And Coach T was a big fan of saying if a guy's double teamed, there's not much you could do. Whereas all the elite guys, Chris Jones is double teamed constantly, and he does things consistently. Kurt says, has this organization prolonged an inevitable complete rebuild? Well, what do you think this team on the field is? I mean, they need to rebuild with youth, and they know that. But you have to have 1 billion draft picks to compete with youth. So they got the best youth they could. Think what you will of J.C. Latham and Tavondre Sweat and Cedric Gray. Those were their top 3 picks. 2 out of 3 are doing reasonably well. I don't know how much a part of the troubles Latham was, but he certainly wasn't the first or second worst thing going on the offensive line. Sweat, is problematic. He had a couple tackles today at least. But, I mean, you're talking about quarterback mostly, I think. And they're going to need another quarterback if this guy continues to play like that. But what could they do? I'd love an answer here. Tell me you're answering this question. What could they do? What more could they have done to rebuild? They use the draft as best that they can, and then they have to fill it out with veterans. And so they decided to fill it out with decent quality veterans who cost some money. Some of them older, right? But, I mean, Owuzi's not that old. Snead is a star. Are you blaming them for going and getting a star? Cushenberry is, one of the best rated centers and certainly one of the best available offensive linemen. So how did they forestall an inevitable rebuild? They're rebuilding and trying to be good at the same time. So did you want them? They're 0-3 doing that. Did you want them not to acquire any of those guys so that they could be 0-3? I don't understand really what you wanted. Get a right tackle that's better, Cornelius said. Well, it's not like there were right tackles out there on trees, you know? Pay Darnold. I mean, I don't know that Darnold is so terrific. I mean, he's playing very well for the team that he's on. But if they had signed Darnold in the spring, I doubt any of you would have been like, woohoo, Sam Darnold. You would have said, you got to go find a young guy, give him a chance. Yeah, the guy that they didn't cut him, they traded him for a 7th rounder, but that they got him is bad. Cheeto is 29 plus, and Cheeto has played very well when he's been out there, but they're not asking Cheeto to be their career second cornerback. They're asking Cheeto to give him 2 years while they find the guy that's going to be opposite Brownlee. Well, what's wrong with signing Cheeto? Like all of a sudden you want him to be thrifty? Don't spend money. Get scrubbier players. I want to see, what's it? Parrish Cox. Get Parrish Cox out there. What are you doing getting Cheeto Awuzie? I mean, Daniel says, I think the team just sucks. Right now, the team sucks. There's a possibility the team gets better. I would think that's the progression that we're going to see. More Ridley and NWI and less Burks, Sabine says. And I am totally on par with that. I mean, Burks does absolutely nothing. There's a big, I'm getting a lot of this. I get some texts on this too. Skoronski to left tackle and Latham at right tackle. So you're flipping the tackle. You're flipping Latham to right tackle. You put Skoronski at left tackle. And then what does that do for the interior? So you've weakened the interior. And they're very big on interior stability because they agree with what Vrabel was saying earlier, that the interior pressure is more scary and quicker than the outside pressure. So you make that move, and they don't believe that Skoronski is a tackle. They believe he's a guard, but do that move, and then your guards are weaker and you get more interior pressure even faster. So how is that solving anything when you're going against, good interior pass rushers? What can Bill Callahan do differently with the offensive line? Keep at it. Keep hammering it. You keep at it. You teach them week to week. Petit Frere did not respond well. They said you got to be more aggressive in pass protection, more physical in pass protection. Was he more physical in pass protection? Like he told a couple of us that he went through a similar dip at Ohio State and that the people surrounding him helped him get through it, and he recovered and got back to playing to his standard. So that's his hope now. Will he get a chance to do that here? He will. I mean, he might be out of the lineup now for a while, but do we think Jalen Duncan's gonna solve right tackle? Or a Jukwu? Probably not. So maybe now they go a couple games with Jalen Duncan and we see how bad he is. And then maybe they go with the Jukwu for a couple games. And then inevitably Petit Frere is going to circle back. Drew says Vrabel was a much better coach than Callahan. It's very easy to see monumental mistake. Were you saying that during the losing streaks of the last couple of years with Vrabel? I thought Vrabel was a very good coach. Who had a very thinned out roster and needed more help. Would he have won one of these 3 games? Levis has been a big problem. Were his offensive coaches good enough? I don't think so. Does Callahan deserve time? Yes. Callahan deserves time. So we'll see. JT, let's take a voicemail if we can. I'd appreciate it. So here comes
Paul,
somebody. Go ahead.
Hey, I guess the question is what's wrong? What's the issue? And the answer is probably lots of different issues. But is this a bad football team? I saw Herndon post that, hey, this is a bad football team. I don't know that I believe that. I think this roster's night and day better than what it was last year. And actually, as you look across the league, it seems like it should be competitive. Is it a new head coach, new play caller, new everything? Maybe we should listen to Chad Brinker a little bit harder when he says it's going to take some time. But I don't know where the signs of progress are. Maybe Levis was a little better today. Take out some plays. I know we can't do that, but where are the issues? Can you identify where they are? There's probably lots of them. Thanks. Appreciate you. Bye.
Well, I think we've hit on a lot of the issues here. I mean, if you want to start with a root cause issue, it's offensive line play and pass protection, right? But, I mean, I was talking with Kuharksy about this. Yeah, he said they didn't run block well. You know, you got to run with some success in order to not get yourself in obvious pass situations. They want to stay out of obvious pass situations where teams can tee off. They're not good enough to handle a lot of obvious long down and distance pass situations. And then Callahan said, and I thought this was a nice point to make, you know, if they're in 3rd and 12, he thought the game was still competitive. He was still calling stuff to try to get the ball, you know, try to get a 13-yard play on 3rd and 12 so that they could keep going instead of calling short stuff that was safer, that would protect the quarterback, but probably wind up in a punt. But, you know, you'd like to have an offensive line where if you wind up in some disadvantageous down and distances, you can still proceed. This team can't have too many of those or it can't function. It gave up 1 sack in the first half. Well, they only possessed the ball for 10 minutes in the first half, and Levis in the first half, you know, I'll have his numbers, you know, so you can feel good about the first half, but you can also say, well, Levis had 10 dropbacks in the first half. 7 for 10 in the first half. So we didn't get a dose of what the Titans had in store for them. So he had 10 dropbacks in the first half, and he wound up with 34 dropbacks. So he had 24 dropbacks in the second half and 7 sacks out of that. But, I mean, there are a lot of problems, obviously. Hopkins, there's a you know, bright spot today. Hopkins came alive. But you're getting absolutely nothing out of Burks. Today you went more jumbo to protect the edges, which seemed like it was working, but again, there were only 10 dropbacks in the first half. So you don't really, did that really help that much? Or was it just the fact that they didn't drop back much? Too many guys not playing up to their potential. You know, still settling into a new offense, still settling into a new defense. I think people got too excited about the defense. Ernest Jones said the same thing. I really thought Ernest Jones spoke well after this game as a defensive spokesman. I'd like to hear more from Ernest Jones and less from Jeff Simmons, frankly. What else do we have? Oh, yeah. B. French said tickets are fixing to be an all-time low for the next home game. I mean, this game sold like crazy. I talked to somebody, told me that they had trouble getting rid of their tickets. I know somebody that was selling upper decks tickets to this game for $300. When's the last time that happened? Packers coming to town is a damn windfall. How do you let Henry get away when the only thing the O-line can do is run block, says Lane Tube 01. You didn't hear the run numbers? 11 carries for 33 yards. That's 3 yards a clip. You think Derrick Henry's doing great behind this offensive line today? He's not. They didn't run block well. In 3 games, you could say they've done some reasonably good run blocking at times, but Derrick Henry is not built for what they're trying to do. And Henry, I saw he had a couple plays today, but I don't think that the way to react to this is, boy, what this offense needs. It's, you know, they're trying to modernize things a little bit. And the problem is we didn't stay in the Stone Age with the Derrick Henry offense. I'll go more with Zach here, who probably saw more Baltimore than I did today. Zach says Jeff Simmons doesn't even care. He's all smiles after the losses, doesn't care about winning, all talk. I think you're onto something there. He wasn't all smiles today, and he made a big mistake. But he does generally it's generally about how Jeff Simmons did in the game more so than how the Titans did in the game. No, Cheeto's got a groin injury and it'll be assessed. We'll probably find out some more tomorrow. So we'll see about that. Vrabel did not have a good roster. They went all in 2021 and did not work. Vrabel paid the consequences of this. What is unacceptable is that they spent $300 million and they're getting worse. Mr. Grisman, I know Vrabel didn't have a good roster. I said that constantly. The last 2 years, the roster was horrible and Vrabel suffered as a consequence of it. And in some ways, Callahan's suffering as a consequence of it because they can't fix everything in one offseason. That's why the right side of the line is bad. I was a fan of Vrabel. I didn't think Vrabel should have been fired, but there's no reason to spend a post-game podcast relitigating the firing of a coach. This is who they have now. I think it's crazy to say that Callahan can't do the job after 3 games. Some teams, not all, some teams get off to a good start under a new head coach with a revamped roster, and some do not. And I've emphasized the time and time again that Chad Brinker told me at the owners' meetings that, there's an awful lot of stuff going on here, and hopefully it gels quickly, but it might not. And if it doesn't, it could take some time. And we're seeing that second scenario. It's not gelling quickly, and it's clearly going to take some time. I think there are some things that could get good. And, I hate the cliche that turnovers come in bunches, but it's kind of freaky that they've turned the ball over 8 or 9 times and they don't have a single turnover. I think eventually they're going to find some turnovers. They have some guys capable of taking the ball away. L'Jarius Sneed is a very good cornerback who can take the ball away. I think Murray's playing pretty well. I think Ernest Jones is a good football player. Those are guys who could take the ball away. This team is better at inside linebacker than it was last year. Jack Gibbons, hallelujah, is on the bench. And I'm not one to spin positive here, but there are some developments. Today, DeAndre Hopkins caught 73 yards worth of passes. In the last 2 weeks, I was thinking this guy might be, on the verge of disappearing. So, somebody now shifting gears talking about, the PSL push for the new stadium. It's not very good. Bottom line is, says Robert Price, schedule has set up well for this team, and they're 0-3. It's going to be a long season. Maybe. I don't know what the Colts did today. Presuming they played today. They're not a very good team. Titans have some opportunities where they will play other bad teams and have better chances to win. Packers are a good football team that played with the presumably bad quarterback today, and the bad quarterback today played quite well in the framework that they were able to set up for him that the Titans couldn't handle. Colts won today, so they're doing a little bit better. They have winnable games. If they're playing Skylar Thompson or Boyle, I still think, those speedster receivers are going to make some plays in some way, shape, or form. But they should go to Miami and, again, have a chance to win. How bad would Levis have to be to get benched barring injury? Well, he was asked outright today, Callahan, if Levis is still his quarterback, and he didn't flinch at the question. So Levis is still his quarterback. And look, again, I don't really understand a lot of you who were anti trying to win games last year that could have hurt the Titans' ability to draft well, who now desperately want to squeak out a win with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is Ryan Tannehill. You hated Ryan Tannehill after he took a turn for the worst, but now you love Mason Rudolph. They're going to get a verdict on Levis that they don't believe that they have yet because he needs to suffer some of this stuff and exist through it. And you might not like that, but that's the way it goes. Look around the league at a lot of starting quarterbacks who are in second and third destinations who survived their bumps and bruises and have gotten to be reasonably good. You're talking about Sam Darnold, talking about Baker Mayfield. I'm not thinking of other guys off the top of my head. You could put some in the comments here. So they're going to see if Will Levis can be one of those guys. If he can be one of those guys, they'd like it to be here instead of in his next stop. That is not an unreasonable approach for this team with what they have. And hopefully they can give him enough experience that by the end of the season, they'll know for sure what's going on. Sabine, again, who tends to make smart comments in here, you can't bail on Levis after 3 games. Give him the season and see how he develops. And that's how it has to work unless he gets hurt. If he's getting sacked 8 times like that, if a guy's running straight down his forehead with giving him 0 time to even tuck the ball, then there's going to be problems. So David Carr, or Derek Carr, excuse me, is another good example. And he's been, he's on his 3rd team now. And he's with the right coordinator. And all of a sudden I think the Saints lost today, but New Orleans looks great. And he looks the best he's ever looked. Well, he's always been a guy that had the arm and had some stuff, but he never quite panned out. Well, there's a tier of quarterbacks in the league that are these guys that just need time, right? Well, he might be a guy that just needs time. So who's to say the next guy isn't going to need time? BJ says, Levis isn't the biggest problem with this team. I would agree with that. The pass protection is the biggest problem with this team. Levis might be the 2nd biggest problem with this team. Callie got peer pressured by the crowd on what? Yeah, you got to settle down, Josh. The Titans are an embarrassment. I'm ashamed to wear team apparel. They've lost 3 games, right? And they're coming off a couple bad seasons. Like, go talk to Jets fans about what an embarrassment is. Go talk to Browns fans. Go talk to Lions fans who have, 20 or 30 years of terrible play, who've never been to a Super Bowl, Cry me a river. I don't think the crowd convinced him to go for it, but I think the play call was really bad. Amy is a problem. I gave Amy grief when she fired John Robinson, which I thought was too early. I didn't like her firing Mike Vrabel. Well, I'm not going to make a sweeping declaration. I mean, I've got people talking to me about a forced sale of the team. It's not how it works. I mean, yeah, have fun. Have fun forcing a sale of the team for a woman that just got the city to align with her on building a stadium that's going to bring the city, year-round events like WrestleMania and the Final Four and the college football playoffs and concerts and all kinds of things. Yeah. Who's an owner that's been usurped without a sexual harassment scandal? Louis, are you talking to me or are you talking to somebody else in the chat? Because I'd be happy to escort you out. Good teams scheme up plays, Brett says, to get your great players the ball. Why is that not the case here more often? D-Hop, Ridley, athletic tight end. Well, D-Hop got the ball today, and Ridley did not. Athletic tight end. Well, I don't think that they think that Chig is much of a weapon, which is fine. I mean, Chig is take it or leave it. Wiley got 4 catches for 43 yards, which is the most action he's got. That's a reasonable amount. So 6 catches for Hopkins, 4 catches for Spears, 4 catches for Wiley. I don't think that's terrible pass distribution. And that's 73 yards, 54 yards, 43 yards. I don't think that's a terrible top of the pass catching leaderboard. Jay thinks that there are good right tackles just sitting out there. Sorry, I got to the wrong spot. Jay thinks that there are good right tackles just sitting out there. We need to sign a free agent right tackle yesterday. I invite you to go check the list of right tackles that are out there. I mean, I think they should be able to find a right tackle on a practice squad that could come in, that they could shine up a little bit, who's going to be better than NPF's been. But why is Tyler Boyd not used more? Tyler Boyd is effective against zone, not against man. So depending on how much the opponent plays zone and man dictates that a little bit, and he's not going to get you yards after the catch. So that's that. He's allowed, Focus says Callahan took a timeout on the 4th down after bringing out the punt team. I do believe he was convinced to go for it at midfield by the crowd and chose another boneheaded play. Well, that's your belief. What if the guy in his ear, the analytics guy, told him it was a better play to go for it, and he decided he wanted a timeout to think about it or reconsider? I mean, I think it's pretty simplistic to think that the crowd convinced him to do it. He's not a child. How much time do I give Levis as he learns? Not fair to Callahan to lose a job waiting. Callahan won't lose his job based on Levis. Coaches generally do not lose their job based on a quarterback that they inherit, certainly not offensive coaches. Levis, I don't know how many times we can say it, has this year for sure. So Callahan's not losing his job over Levis being bad this year, and Levis gets this year to get a verdict. And I know a lot of you think the verdict is in, but it's not. Dixie thinks LaFleur is the most underrated coach in the league. I think he's pretty highly regarded. BJ says Levis' first interception really worried him. He didn't work his way through his reads. Well, he went to his first read. He stared it down, and it wasn't very good. Yeah, I'm not going to ask him if the crowd played a role, Devin, because it's a stupid question. And I'm not in the habit of embarrassing myself by asking stupid questions. Sorry. Why has this team not shown any improvements, just regression? I think that you could look at what Will Levis did today. It's 2 interceptions and a lost fumble. And I think if you looked at this game versus the Chicago game, he was better today than he was in Chicago. Now, it's not the improvement that we want, but I wouldn't call it a regression. So I disagree with your premise. This is absolutely true from Drew that the Titans should have had the most info on Willis to attack his weak points and should never get torched by him. But if they are getting him in 2nd and 4 and missing tackles, that's not a lack of a plan. I don't disagree with your question overall. But if they're getting him in 2nd and 4 and then the Titans are missing tackles, that's not a lack of a plan for a guy that they should know how to attack. That's a lack of execution. And the routes and the plays that the Packers designed for him are very smart, and the Titans didn't execute well against those plays. Attacking his weaknesses are covering longer to make him have extended reads. Well, they didn't cover long enough to make him do that. And he's throwing, if you look at the map that I tweeted out or that is in my column, which is up, about how losing to him is a crime against mankind, you'll see that. I mean, he threw 3 balls, I think, that were, 12 or 15 yards or longer. So, was the plan bad? I don't know that we really got to see the plan. I mean, that's a good question, Robert. In the first half, they moved the pocket. Why did they not run any boots in the second half when the blocking was clearly worse? I don't know. And CW is asking about a spy with Malik, but sometimes if you're running a spy and the guy is really slippery and breaks an initial tackle, he's out running or getting a corner on your spy. We got one more phone call, so let's cue that up, JT. Voicemails for members only. You get your voice on here. If you're a member of PaulKuharksy.com, you could call and vent post game which I think is cathartic for a lot of people. Here comes another one.
Paul, what's up? It's Trey in Chattanooga with the kids. Say hi.
Hi.
So we're sitting here after the game because, as you know, I'm exposing my kids to this team for some reason. And obviously today was terrible. But I'm curious to know, we've gone through coaches, we've gone through GMs, we've gone through players. There's been overhaul. We're still in this rebuild era. But it kind of looks like all ends lead to Amy Adams Strunk or the group that she's representing for the team. At what point do the people of Nashville just get sick of the Adams family like Houston did? Obviously, there's some weird, eerie similarities between bringing in a new stadium, the timing of it, and this team just being straight cheeks. But is there anybody in Nashville, and maybe I'm being facetious here, is there anybody in Nashville that could buy the Titans and save the franchise?
It's been a big conversation about how Nashville, as great a financial city is kind of lacks billionaires who are the kind of people that could like buy a baseball team and bring it here. It'd have to be an outsider. Maybe there are more now than I'm familiar with, but the team's not for sale, you know. And she got the stadium deal done here. The reason that Houston kicked Bud Adams out is because he wasn't enough of a diplomat to get a stadium deal done. He fought with the mayor. Well, Amy Adams Strunk and her people befriended the mayor and the governor and all the political people that they needed to befriend in order to get a stadium deal done. So she's in the good graces of all of the bigwigs, not looked down upon by them. So, and by the way, the stadium opening, I mean, I understand they're selling tickets and getting the funds going on that now. Stadium's a billion years in football team roster stuff away, right? We're in the 2024 season. We've got 2025 season, 2026 season, 2027 season. So there's 3 seasons away. We have no idea who'll be coaching this team. We have no idea who'll be the general manager. We have no idea who'll be the quarterback. You know, when Jeff signed that contract, we said, oh, Jeff will be the guy who's left. We have no reasonable expectation that Jeff Simmons will be on the team that plays in that stadium. You look at the turnover of this roster, it's conceivable that there will be no one from this team that plays in that stadium. You would hope that Latham and Sweat are on that team that plays on the other side. Where am I? On the other side of those stands that are behind me. But, you know, we have no idea what's going on. Here comes Doveman. Meanwhile, the King pops off $150 and 2 TDs. Yeah. Well, let's see what the King does in total this year. The King is not going to solve the Titans' problems. You know, people are talking about a total rebuild on the one hand. On the other hand, they're pining for the King, who did something. The King's also on the sideline for a lot of plays. So anybody that BJ says, I feel like the defense thought they knew what Willis was and found out LaFleur is a real NFL head coach. If they didn't know LaFleur is a real NFL coach who's had great success for the last, 6 years, 5 years plus in Green Bay, and then they've been asleep. Certainly, Brian Callahan knows the caliber of coach that Matt LaFleur is. So there's no thing. G says that Will Levis looks the part 90% of the time. I would disagree with 90% of the time, and I would say there are some things, if you look the part 90% of the time, that 10% can be very, very heavily weighted. CW thinks that the defense came out and just felt like they were going to walk out and beat Willis. That's how bad they looked. I wouldn't disagree with that. I am still at the stadium. See the stadium behind me? Maybe you're just listening. I stay at the stadium to do the podcast after I'm done writing when I post my column, and I am almost always the last reporter here, Titans reporter for sure. A PR guy stays until everybody's done. He's got a lot of work to do, so he could take it home or maybe take it back to the facility, but he stays here until I'm done. I usually leave here about 7:30. It used to be as late as 8:30, but we no longer have Derrick Henry, who took forever to talk to the media. And so things are much faster. The crowd today felt like a home Packers crowd. There were very audible cheers of "Go Packers, go! Go Packers, go!" Packers' first scoring drive, a lot. There are lots of games where there are lots of visiting fans at Nissan Stadium, but I can't recall one recently where there was such volume. And I think the percentage may have been as high as ever. Usually those fans come in and they fill up the lower bowl. They're sitting across that Titans word mark that's in the blue seats, but rarely are they sitting up there in the blue seats. So you go blue on the lower, red in the club, blue in the upper. There was a lot of Packers yellow and green in those upper seats today, surprising degree. Yeah, everybody's quoting me Derrick Henry's statistics today as if like, well, that's it. Derrick Henry had one big game for Baltimore, and so there it go. You can't – Titans made a mistake. I mean, these are big picture things, not tiny little snapshots. Same thing with Malik. I mean, Malik had a good day today, and he executed things. Do I think Malik's going to that means that Malik's going to be a good NFL quarterback? Absolutely not. Now, maybe he is, but I need to see more than that to be convinced. And I certainly need more from Derrick Henry there to be convinced he's going to be good in Baltimore. And maybe he is good in Baltimore, but I have no problem with the Titans moving on from Derrick Henry. It needed to turn over this team and become a more modern offense. And Derrick is not a modern offense guy. Derrick is on the sidelines on third down when you might need to throw to a running back. I know he caught a pass or two today. That doesn't change what he is as a pass catcher. He catches the ball generally facing the quarterback. He doesn't run the route tree. He's not a pass protector. He's very good at what he does, but what he does is not all of the things that a offense like what this one aspires to be ask a running back to do. I mean, what Bill Callahan can do to shore up right tackle play is coach, and continue to coach who he's got to do it better than they're doing it. Now, Paxton here, Jeremy saying Malik didn't just have a good day today. He's had back-to-back good weeks. Last week, he did very little statistically. This week, he had a terrific statistical day. I mean, his yards per attempt was Levis was 7.6. Willis was 10.6. Last week, I don't think he was anywhere near that. I may have broken one or two big plays, but last week they ran for 1 billion yards. They ran well today, but Willis accounted for a larger share of their running and also played very well in the passing game. He did much more this week than he did last week. Wins are not a quarterback stat. He led his team to 2 wins. He helped them win 2 games, but he was much more influential player this week than he was last week. Some more bashing of Simmons here. Got exposed, I thought, not a top D lineman. He's not as good as the Titans think. He's not as good as he thinks. G is on that too. I just wish we'd quit pretending that Jeff Simmons is an all-pro and a team leaner. I want to see Ernest Jones step up vocally as the season goes on. Ernest Jones was great in the locker room today, and I really enjoyed talking to him, and I'd much rather quote him than Jeff Simmons. Titans think Jeff Simmons is better than he is. Jeff Simmons thinks Jeff Simmons is better than he is. That does not mean he cannot be very good, and they need him to be very good, and I think he will play better than he has played. And look, teams are not trying to run up the middle against the Titans. That's a testament to Simmons and Sweat for sure, but, you know, we'll see. Sam points out that the Titans fans suffer from a terrible case of envy. I think he's had 1 good game in 3 games. If he plays good a third of the season, he could have a pretty good season, Henry. But, I mean, I just think you've got to calm down about that. How do you know the scan count, Dixie? I would love to be able to know the scan count. I think the building was full today. I did not see empty seats at all. They always announce, you know, tickets distributed, and tickets distributed is always 67, 322 or something like that. But if you have access to the scan count, we need to be better friends than we are, Dixie. And you did change your dumb name, so I appreciate you for that. I wish you'd just use your name like most of the normal people in here. CW, Bill's reputation around the NFL is very, very high as a good O-line coach, but I know Brian, where he comes from in Cincy, they've had massive O-line issues. We sacked Burrow 8 times in the playoff game. Well, Brian is giving Bill the authority to do what Bill wants to do on the offensive line coach. He's not bringing Cincinnati stuff and overruling Bill with it. But the problem Cincinnati had was personnel, and the problems the Titans have is personnel. Dixie, email me about that scan count stuff. pkuharksky@gmail.com. pkuharksky@gmail.com. Hey, I'm going to be out of here in just a minute. If you need to lock that, I guess it's locked now from the outside. We'll take a couple more and we'll get out of here. There's no way she locked me in. There's no way it locks from the inside. Shador Sanders is used to playing behind bad lines. We need PK versus Deion Jr. Part 2. I would hate to cover Shador Sanders. Would hate it. You can't bail on the number 1 draft pick. I don't know who we're talking about there. I don't know who we're asking to bail on as the number 1 draft pick. Lucas says, funny to hear Malik only played 1 good game and Derek only 1 good game. Levis has a fat goose egg showing anything. Titans goose egg. This is their damn profession. I don't know any other profession that gets paid this much that we give so many chances, excuses, and opportunities for. Lucas, first off, of course there's no other profession. It's professional sports. They get paid a shit ton of money. They put their bodies at risk. That's what it is. So say Henry does nothing next week and Malik goes back to the bench and Levis has a good game. Then it'll be 1 good game for Levis, and that'll be okay. But what do you want to happen? So Levis has had a big, bad 3 games. You want him fired? Out? You give so many chances, excuses, and opportunities. This idea that you can take Nicholas Petit-Frere or Will Levis and somehow toss them away presumes that there's somebody else who can replace them and do better. And there is not. You're living in a fantasy land. You get this thing going on. I'm watching this guy, and he's performing poorly. They've got to get rid of him. If it was in my job, they would get rid of the guy. Your job and the NFL job are nothing alike. And you can't merely take a guy who's had 3 bad games and be done with him if the plan was for him to play the whole season and to get a gauge of him. It's just not how it works. You should be smart enough to understand, Lucas. You got to join paulkuharksky.com here where you get educated on these things. Their plan this season is to see this guy over the course of 17 games and get a full sense of him. The light switch comes on for some people. 6 games in, 8 games in, 12 games in. All of a sudden, they see things differently. They hear things differently. They understand things differently. Football takes time for some people. Go look at Sam Darnold. Go look at Derek Carr. Go look at numerous players around the league, not just quarterbacks, guys on their 2nd and 3rd team who just needed time. Some of these offensive linemen. Skoronski's not as good as he can be yet. Now, maybe he turns out to stink, or maybe he's like potentially your favorite radio host, and you can make a snap judgment on a guy after a season and 3 games, and that's it. I'm going to go with Bill Callahan, right? I'm going to go with Bill Callahan, and wait and see and watch him coach a guy and give him some time. Malik Willis stunk when he was here. A good practice, and he got, that was a good practice. Well, good practice was good compared to how bad he'd been before. And today, in a very good game plan, with an offense that executed around him, he played a fantastic game. Never saw that coming, right? If they had followed, if the league had done what you would have done, you would have scrapped the guy. And based on scrapping the guy, never would have got a chance to do that today. Never would have got a chance to do that. So that's where we end it. PaulKuharksy.com. Come join and get all of the fun, not just some of the fun, all of the fun. I appreciate you listening. I'll do a spot Monday morning, Robbie and Rex Road, Monday afternoon on a football show on the 440 Network with Braden Gall. Much more good stuff to come on those venues and much more great stuff to read at paulkuharksy.com. Don't block the box and be sure to lock your locks. I appreciate you very much. Have a great night and a great month.